Los Angeles Rams fans, I have been sitting here thinking about this team, and honestly, the intensity of this Super Bowl window has us all on edge. Just today, a development surfaced that could shake up everything regarding our defensive depth chart as we approach the trade deadline. It is fascinating because it forces us to weigh the value of a former first-round pick against our future draft capital and conference rival dynamics. The more details come out, the harder it is to ignore the chess game happening behind the scenes. Hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me your name and city. Let us get into it. Emmanuel Forbes is suddenly the subject of intense trade speculation after the Detroit Lions released Terrion Arnold following his shocking arrest on kidnapping and armed robbery charges. We brought Forbes in at the end of 2024 as a calculated gamble to bolster our secondary, hoping his first-round pedigree would translate into solid production. Since his arrival, he has struggled with consistency and failed to secure a permanent starting role, eventually leading the front office to decline his fifth-year option this offseason. As Los Angeles Rams fans, we have watched him serve as a depth piece behind Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson, but the signing of undrafted free agents like Alzelian Hamilton and Nizir Forkarian confirms that the coaching staff has lost faith in his long-term potential. The news of a potential trade to Detroit has hit our fan base in a strange way, because while many of us were already bracing for his departure, the reality of helping a fellow NFC contender is difficult to swallow. The bottom line is that the Lions are desperate for cornerback help, and while sending a player to a rival is risky, the prospect of clearing $2.8 million in cap space and potentially snagging a late-round draft pick might be too enticing for Sean McVay to ignore. The part fans are not ready for is that if younger prospects like Cam Lampkin continue to impress during camp, Forbes becomes entirely expendable. We need to decide if his utility as a backup is worth more than the draft capital we could recover. Regardless of what happens next, we have to stay focused on our primary goal of winning it all this year. Ram it. The truth is that losing depth is never ideal, but moving on from a player who clearly does not fit our future plans is just standard business in this league. The truth is, we find ourselves at this crossroads because Emmanuel Forbes failed to stabilize his career after his high draft pedigree crashed into reality. The decision to decline his fifth-year option earlier this offseason signaled that his time in Los Angeles was effectively running out. Currently, Forbes is playing out the final year of his deal, and with the Rams looking to trim $2.8 million in cap space, moving him for a late-round draft pick is a move that simply balances the books. Historically, the front office has never been shy about cutting bait when a high draft pick fails to produce, much like past attempts to salvage secondary depth that fell flat. Behind closed doors, Sean McVay and the coaching staff are likely weighing the raw upside of youngsters like Cam Lampkin against the veteran inconsistency of Forbes. They know that while Forbes serves as a depth piece, he has not earned the trust required to be a long-term starter on a contending defense. It is a cold reality. But when you have limited draft capital, acquiring a 6th or 7th round pick for a player who likely will not return next year is a calculated business decision. What makes this even bigger is the potential threat of sending talent to Dan Campbell and the Lions, who are direct rivals in the NFC title picture. Trading with them forces us to decide if the value of a mid-round draft pick outweighs the risk of empowering an opponent. If the young guys truly show out during training camp, the internal logic of this move becomes undeniable. We have to ask ourselves if we want to hold on to a flickering flame or trade it for the assets we desperately need to continue our pursuit of a championship. Ram it. The reality is that our window for a title is wide open right now, and every roster decision carries massive weight for our championship aspirations. With the Lions suddenly desperate for cornerback help after releasing Terrion Arnold, we have a unique opportunity to turn a bench warmer into tangible assets. Emmanuel Forbes is clearly not in our long-term plans after the front office declined his option, and keeping him around as a depth piece feels like a waste of resources given the promise shown by guys like Cam Lampkin. If we offload Forbes to Detroit for a late-round pick, we not only clear nearly $3 million in crucial cap space, but also accumulate extra draft capital to bolster our thinning roster before the deadline. Moving Forbes is a calculated move that allows us to trust our younger development pipeline while simultaneously providing the front office with the flexibility to chase a final piece for a deep playoff run. Looking ahead, this depth adjustment directly impacts our ability to handle high-powered aerial attacks in critical matchups against teams like the Vikings or the Giants, where every secondary snap is vital. While assisting an NFC rival like Detroit is always a bitter pill to swallow, this is about maximizing our personnel value during a Super Bowl window. If we remain stagnant, we risk wasting Forbes on the bench while our division rivals continue to improve. By trading him, we secure the assets needed to solidify our standing against the Seahawks and the rest of the NFC West, ensuring that our defensive secondary remains elite when the games count the most. The bottom line is that we must prioritize our own path to greatness over sentimental attachments to inconsistent players. It is time to make the smart business move for this team. Ram it. The strongest argument for sending Emmanuel Forbes to Detroit is simple salary cap management and asset accumulation. By offloading his contract, we gain nearly $3 million in space while securing a draft pick to bolster our thin inventory for next year. For a contender, every extra asset matters. On the flip side, the major risk is losing veteran insurance. While younger guys like Lampkin show flashes, they lack NFL experience. Trading Forbes to the Lions, a direct conference rival, could backfire if he finally finds his footing under Dan Campbell during a critical playoff push. Industry analysts are watching this situation closely because it highlights how aggressive the front office is becoming regarding roster turnover. Many league observers are questioning whether the Rams should prioritize helping a competitor if it means losing depth that could be vital during a Super Bowl run. Other front offices are whispering that the Rams might be overestimating their younger depth, potentially leaving the secondary exposed if an injury occurs to McDuffie or Watson. Here is where I land on this trade proposition. If we truly believe that our undrafted gems have the grit to step up when the lights are brightest, then moving Forbes is an easy decision. However, trading to an NFC rival is a move that usually requires a higher price tag than a measly 7th-round pick. I believe we should keep him as a safety net because the cost of losing him far outweighs the minor cap savings we would receive. If we get an offer higher than a late rounder, sure, pull the trigger. Otherwise, keep the depth, trust our guys, and focus on winning that championship. It is about patience, and we simply cannot afford to get cute with our defensive secondary depth before the season even hits its stride. Ram it. The bottom line here is that the potential trade of Emmanuel Forbes to Detroit highlights a calculated pivot for our franchise direction under Sean McVay. By moving on from a former first-round pick, the Rams are prioritizing cap efficiency and internal competition over sunk costs, signaling that we are building a lean, hungry roster capable of sustaining championship contention for years to come. As Los Angeles Rams fans, you should feel optimistic about this approach because it shows that our front office is finally shedding the weight of underperforming veteran investments to make room for high-upside younger talent like Cam Lampkin. This shift creates a healthier locker room culture where playing time is truly earned on the practice field rather than given based on draft pedigree. While it is always tough to part ways with a player who held promise, clearing nearly $3 million in cap space and gaining a draft asset is exactly the kind of move that keeps us ahead of the curve. Think about it this way. We are currently stockpiling resources to ensure this window remains wide open. Even with the risk of helping a rival, our confidence in the secondary depth proves the coaching staff has a clear vision for the defensive backfield this year. It is a bold move, but it is necessary for maintaining our status as an elite NFC contender. Now, I want to hear from you. Would you trade Emmanuel Forbes to a direct conference rival like the Detroit Lions for a late-round pick, or would you rather keep him as insurance for our defense? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Ram it. I'll see you in the next one.